itself and I hit a depressive episode, and I have to manage that. So what I do now, invariably, is I don't get an awful lot of time to watch films and TV when I'm busy like I am now. So I make a list. I make a list of things that people recommend, and 9 times out of 10, it's things that I absolutely love because my friends have got a very good idea of what makes me tick, what I like and what I don't like. So I put them on the list, and I go through the list, and I rinse the list when I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Because it's a struggle for me to do pretty much anything else.
Oh, mate, yeah. I just want to keep these to an hour just because I think that's what I do. We're still good. We've still got loads of time, but it's just annoying because I've got so much to ask on top of that, and I'm already thinking about what the next
You're
question...
the boss?
No, I'm not the boss. In fact, by my own definition, you are the boss.
We're both the bosses.
Yeah, mate. Everyone's the boss, mate. Everyone has to be the boss of their own life.
I'm just looking at Charlie Marks in the background.
You're not supposed to say that, Ian. I'm trying to convince people I'm not crazy, mate. Have I told you a story? This is. He's
an interesting character, actually. Politics aside, he used to knock policemen's helmets off in the street because my dad was a very strict socialist, and he walked the walk. He was no champagne socialist. He didn't believe in accumulating wealth or living, paying a mortgage or anything like that. Now, I'm not saying that I agreed with his politics completely. There were lots of aspects I liked, some that I didn't. I used to argue with him about his politics. I used to argue with my stepdad about his politics because he's very conservative. Each thought that their politics had the answer to everything. And it was almost like a religion. I kind of envied the fact that they had something that they believed in so wholeheartedly. They thought that it provided all the answers to everything. I'm a bit more nuanced. I like to dip into ideas and take bits from each rather than subscribe to things wholesale.
Oh, mate, 100%. And this is why I said, and my mates know who they are, one of which is B, and then the others one of them I've mentioned. But I couldn't, I had a political chat that got to a point where I had to walk outside. And I didn't lose it, but I was like, well, I have my ideas, you have your ideas, everyone has their ideas about politics. They literally do, and that's why I don't talk about it. That's why I don't talk about COVID.
Very wise.
Very wise. But the thing is me just saying that is talking about politics, and actually it ends normally and I would, but I'm stopping myself because it's like it would normally end in me then saying, but actually, like, do you know what I mean? And then I'd talk about politics. So my rule, unless I'm willing to have a long conversation, is just don't say the P word, basically, because if you say it spreads. So much.
Better than not enough.
No, not enough time. We've got all the time in the world, but it's just in terms of running a podcast business, if you want to call it that, I have to think about the wider audience.
Sure, no, absolutely.
I'm not Joe Rogan yet, mate, but one day he'll be asking me to come on my podcast. That'll be the day. But no, essentially what it is I think what I really want to say, which is difficult, and also just because it's the first time I've had the opportunity, I just want to say what Ian was saying was very, very raw, and very, like, heartfelt, and ultimate respect goes out to that, for one, to you, mate, but also, like, that's heavy, like, that was heavy for me. I have a thing where when I get stressed, I have like an in-breath. It's I don't know where it's come from. I do, but I'm not going to say it because everyone would think I am literally crazy. But essentially that happens, and that was quite hard to hear from man to man.
I find it quite easy because it's such a different mindset to where I am now. It's almost like talking about a night out when you were drunk. It's still you.
Oh, mate, and do you know what? That's a great analogy. Like, I've always said that. And that's why I asked the question about mental illness, because actually the point is, for me, with bipolar, which is what we're here to talk about, what I want to talk about, and what I'm passionate about. But that's exactly what I've said before. if people say, what's your bipolar like? I say, it's like you're on... I've never done ecstasy, but I'm like, it's like you're on ecstasy for 5 months and then you're hungover for 12 months. And every single person who's had a drink, too many, which is anyone that's had a drink, basically, right? Anyone that's had a hangover knows that if you have a really bad hangover, it's a nightmare. And sometimes that can last for 3 days.
Yeah, your analogy with ecstasy is spot on, because MDMA gives you feelings of euphoria, and it's an emotional high rather than like a trippy.
Oh mate, I've watched almost every single one of my drugs on friends, my friends on drugs. So I, as much as literally my family, all 4 of my close family have been like, well, you've definitely taken drugs before, right? I haven't, but I've experienced some of my nearest and dearest doing it. So I've done the research on MDMA. One of my best mates in the whole entire world. He is literally my best mate in the whole entire world. He knows a lot about a lot of things. One of his best mates is in, like, you know, pharmacy and stuff. So he knows a lot about drugs, right? And we've talked about that before. You know, so I've literally got a direct link between a pharmacist and me. So I know all about MDMA, right? Because I've done the research myself, I've heard it from someone else's experience, and I've literally watched people in a euphoric state, you can see, right? And that's what I'm saying. So I know about it, but I've never taken... I don't need to take it. Anyone who's had bipolar mania doesn't need it.
To a friend of mine years ago, and I was explaining how various different aspects of being manic are very much like different types of drugs. And wide-eyed, he looked at me and he said, that sounds amazing, it's free. I said, it's hard work when you can't turn it off.
And okay, so there's a few more things. So the whole racing thoughts thing and the mania thing. Like, look, as far as I'm concerned, from my own experience, I don't have a filter. I was in a shop today with 2 people who are actually genuinely friends of mine now. As I'm sure you've had the same thing. They're not my best mates. I'm not going to take a bullet for them. But, like, I really enjoy seeing them, right? And they were like, you just don't have a filter, do you, mate? And I was like, no. To the people I don't really know that well, that is the person who I actually am, right?
I would say that's very typically bipolar thing. The Carrie Fisher thing that I posted is just a prime example. I mean, the way the things she gets away with because she's Carrie Fisher and Princess Leia is just incredible. But she does it in such a clever way. It's a million miles away from being abusive and throwing out insults. You see, I tend not to use insulting terms because invariably they're nothing more than a good indicator of how the person you're using them is feeling. If they say, my brother used to say to me, you've got your head up your arse, well, that's not actually saying anything other than communicating to me that he's really annoyed to me. Because if you tried to analyse literally that sentiment, it doesn't work.
Of course it... Mate, I don't think I've told you this. I was bullied when I was younger for being fat, right? And for so many years, just like when I had a divorce that was really amicable, it was horrendous, right? I also was bullied, right? But for ages, I was like, no, I didn't get bullied, you know, they would, you know, because someone else in my life was bullied, like, more physically, and mine was just people talking to me. But if I'm walking into a room every time, and people, like, a lot of people, not always a lot of people, sometimes just one person, sometimes a few, right, would just be like, piggy, right? That's bullying, right? By any standards. If someone said that to me at work, I'd say, report your boss, right? As anyone should do. It's bullying, right? So I was bullied, right? But even you, mate, if you jokingly were like, oh, you look a bit fat today, I'd laugh in your face. And I'd be like, fine, right? I also made a thing for 2 people in my life. One person. I hate being called fella, and I hate being called buddy, right? Buddy because I think it's patronising, fella because I also think it's patronising, and just someone in my past life said it a lot, and I don't mean a literal past life, I mean in, like, the life before,
It's safe with me. I don't use either of those.
Yeah, no, exactly.
With anyone.
But to be honest, to a point where literally, if someone, even if I got on with someone for an hour and then they're like, "Oh, all right, yeah, sound buddy," I'd be like, "Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, it was nice to meet you. See you later." Right? I don't care anymore, and I think that's the important point. Is it's like actually like we can sit here and be, you know, whatever. Like, you have to be sensitive to some people. But the point I'm trying to make about the whole filter thing is actually, realistically, I've turned the filter off today. The only filter I've got on, is if I'm offending someone or I'm swearing. Exactly, as you just said. And that's the point. Like, me naturally is this, right? And do you know what? I do spend a lot of money. Because I like clothes. I also like cars. I also like jewellery.
You need to keep reins on that, though.
No,
honestly.
and I'm aware. 100%. 100%. I'm aware.
That's a very, very, very common aspect of mania, and it's something which has cost me more than money in the past.
Oh, mate, and me too, 100%. But that's all I'm saying is that actually, like, this is the whole thing, and I think this is the reason why I asked you a question about the mental illness. Is that actually, like, who's to say? And again, I don't want to offend anyone because I understand that people have literally died from bipolar. So I have to be careful about how I say this, but like, who's to say that we aren't just similar character types that enjoy spending money or not even spending money? Like, spending excessive amounts of money is a symptom of bipolar.
Sure, I often find when people will hear something about bipolar and they'll pick up on some of the symptoms and think, oh, that sounds like me. But what they don't necessarily appreciate is a whole range of symptoms. It's not just 2 or 3. So in order to qualify to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder, you need to have over a certain amount. It's like other types of psychopathy, narcissistic personality disorder. Again, there is a lot of boxes to tick before you're deemed classed as that.
But mate,
you can't just take 2 or 3 and say, "Oh, that's me."
100%. If I can interject just quickly there, because we do have to wrap it up fairly soon as well.
Yeah, sure.
Right? We know 2 things. OCD, psychopathy, right, which you've just mentioned. You haven't mentioned OCD, but that was the first one, and now psychopath is better, right? OCD. How many people have said, "Oh, you're a bit OCD"? I literally went to hospital with a man who
said, "Oh, you're a bit bipolar," even when it's not necessarily.
I didn't even want to do that to be inclusive of every mental illness, because that's what I'm doing, right? OCD. I'm a bit OCD. Well, I was in hospital with a man who couldn't leave his room, and he literally sat in the dark just looking at the same photo of his phone, right? That is severe OCD, right? How many times, and I know that not even just with girlfriends, like I've said this with people, not even just women, by the way, right? Mate, you're a psycho, right? We've all done it. But the point is I think that's why I'm questioning the whole mental illness thing, right? I'm not questioning mental illness. There is mental illness. That is very clear. But my point is, what is to say that when someone says I'm a bit OCD, that's not just because they have an obsessive compulsive personality. And actually, the person who is suffering and debilitated by OCD is just someone that has an obsessive compulsive personality, but the stresses and the negativities in their life has pushed them into such a low ebb that then they have got a disorder because of their obsessive compulsive personality. We all have a personality, right? We can change that personality if we want. If we try really, really hard, we can change it. I believe.
To a degree, yeah.
Right? Just as you say, mate, you manage the fact that you don't lose it, right? But if you wanted to, you could just be like, Bipey Fox. Sorry, I've got to be anonymous, right? Bipey Fox, you're an arse. And I'd be like, okay, you make that choice not to.
I think it was from the book that I recommended in the last podcast I did with you. Tune in if you haven't already watched it. Was that bipolar disorder is quite often diagnosed with other
we did this
of mental illness. So it's quite common for people to say have bipolar disorder and OCD.
Let's go
and being on the
105, mate. Just sorry to
autism
interrupt.
spectrum.
We'll go. So we've got another 5 minutes. Let's just do it. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Okay.
this is really important.
A fascinating thing that a friend of mine said. Now, he's high functioning. He's on the autistic spectrum, but he's very high functioning. Was he